Good afternoon, and thank you for coming. We are thrilled today to have a press conference to talk about Senate Bill 332. At the end, we will take questions. I want to thank my fellow legislators, our Attorney General, Chris Carr, for joining me today to discuss a very serious and growing issue we are facing for our business and consumers, addressing Senate Bill 332, which is the Informed Consumer Act. This is designed to combat organized retail crime. Last year, nationwide, there was $69 billion in losses nationwide. Let me repeat that, $69 billion. This impacted businesses, small and large, but ultimately, it impacted consumers. Doesn't matter where you live or where you shop, whether you're urban, rural, or suburban. This activity happens and it is devastating to the stores, to jobs, and consumers. Consumers need to know who they're buying from. Doesn't matter whether it's tools, food, toys, or baby formula. This bill is very similar to laws we've passed here in the General Assembly to address metal theft as well as pawn shops. These are not going after shoplifters, make no mistake. This is theft for greed and not for need. These are anonymous sellers and criminals who have gone online. Organized retail crime is where organized and sophisticated criminal elements using retailers as an ATM to fund drug activity, gangs, violence, and human trafficking. This activity is organized and orchestrated by professional criminals who take command and then take advantage of some of our most vulnerable Georgians. Those vulnerable Georgians assume all the risk and do the legwork for the professional criminals. And it's time these professional criminals assume the appropriate risk as well. We're targeting the professionals, and I want to take a moment to thank Governor Brian Kemp for aggressively battling crime and gang violence here in Georgia. Georgia is the #1 place to do business, as we all well know, but we want to make it clear that we're going to be the last place when it comes to organized retail crime. This legislation targets the professionals, the organized thieves, by addressing the electronic resale of stolen and fraudulent goods in high volumes by third-party resellers on online marketplaces, and provides clear regulations to benefit consumers. I'm proud of the work that was put into a federal bill, which is not advanced at this point, but we modeled the bill in Georgia, and it is 98% similar, and I'm proud of the folks and the large companies that agreed to the federal bill, including Amazon, eBay, Amazon, and others. In summary, the Informed Consumer Act will protect consumers by requiring online marketplaces to collect and verify third-party seller information, government IDs, tax IDs, and bank account information, as well as contact information to require these high-volume sellers to disclose contact information to consumers. In summary, this is to go after the bad actors, protect our businesses, and protect our consumers. At this time, I would like to introduce our Attorney General, Chris Carr. Attorney General Carr has been an extraordinary partnership to us in the legislature, as well as been a nationwide leader in combating crime, specifically in organized retail crime, as well as gangs keeping Georgia businesses and consumers safe. Attorney General Carr.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate it. Senator, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be with you today and with your colleagues. Let me say thank you very much for your and your colleagues' dedication to addressing this important issue and the work that your Senate colleagues and you have done. And I also want to thank Representative Gaines, who's here as well, knowing that he and his colleagues will be continuing to work as the Informed Consumers Act now goes to the House. I am confident that the final version of this bill will provide all of us, in both the public and the private sector, more tools to combat organized retail crime in Georgia, and that it will send a strong signal to those who commit this type of crime in our state. Mike and Ben are also here as well. Great to be with you. Thank you for your continued dedication to the cause and for the partnerships and expertise that your companies have provided in this area. In fact, Mike and the Home Depot joined us at our Georgia Anti-Gang Network meeting back in December of 2019, I believe, to further educate our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners on the scope of organized retail crime in Georgia and around the country. So thanks to you and our partners at CVS for continuing the push to protect consumers and businesses in our state. Organized retail crime lies at the crossroads of public safety and business. When criminals brazenly rush into a Home Depot or CVS or any number of stores in the state of Georgia and around the country, they risk the lives of employees and customers. We've seen videos of employees and customers being verbally and physically assaulted, punched, knocked to the ground, and worse. And at a time when it's incredibly difficult to hire employees, where workforce is cited as one of the most significant challenges facing employers, the additional concern a potential employee may now have is for his or her own personal safety, and becomes yet another headwind as employers struggle to hire workers. And the economic impact of these stolen goods is rising into the billions and dramatically impacts the ability of companies to create more jobs and investment in our state. Not to mention the higher costs we all have to pay as a result of these crimes, coming during a supply chain crisis and inflation soaring to its highest level in 40 years. All of this is unacceptable. As a former Commissioner of Economic Development and the current Attorney General, I believe in protecting the citizens of Georgia and ensuring we maintain the best business environment in the nation. And I am proud that our state is making combating organized retail crime a priority, and that our office is in the fight to put an end to this crime in Georgia and around the country. The truth is, organized retail crime affects 97% of retailers in our state. It exposes Georgia's retail workers to potentially dangerous encounters, puts consumers at risk of unknowingly purchasing expired and defective goods from online marketplaces, and threatens the health and growth of local businesses. This unlawful activity can be linked to other criminal operations, as Senator Albers mentioned, including human trafficking, drug trafficking, corruption, bribery, and money laundering. Retailers are already dealing with the impacts of the pandemic, supply chain disruptions, and a workforce shortage. And now they are fighting systematic looting and violent smash and grabs. Stores like CVS and Walgreens are having to lock up basic essentials, and warehouses, trains, and cargo trucks have become targets as well. As the #1 state for business, we will not tolerate this type of unlawful behavior, and we will always stand up for Georgia's consumers. Our top legislative priority this session is the creation of a gang prosecution unit in our office, which will allow us, among other things, to prosecute organized retail crime directly. I want to thank Governor Brian Kemp for proposing this unit in his budget in the State of the State, and for his steadfast support. And just yesterday, through the leadership of Chairman Chuck Efstration and many others, the House overwhelmingly passed our bill. So it's coming to you guys. We know that gangs are profiting off drugs, guns, human beings, cyber crimes, and benefits, but they are also engaged in the violent smash and grabs targeting retailers nationwide. In 2020 alone, 65% of retailers said organized retail crime gangs are exhibiting greater levels of violence and aggression than ever before, and this needs to stop. As I have said, it is the paramount duty of government to protect person and property, and our #1 priority is to ensure the safety of all Georgians. Our gang prosecution unit will provide us with the authority to prosecute these crimes and will help to protect the lives and livelihoods of our fellow Georgians. We will act as a force multiplier, working hand in hand with chiefs of police, sheriff's offices, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, district attorneys, and our U.S. attorneys to build the best possible cases and ensure that justice is served. And through our Georgia Anti-Gang Network, law enforcement officials are already stepping up to curb this syndicated behavior. And it's important to note that these efforts do more than put bad actors behind bars. They can potentially save lives. But we know action is needed now, and we're already taking active steps to bring folks together to address the surge in organized retail crime. We're engaged in active discussions with retailers, online marketplaces, and state and local law enforcement to enhance communication and collaboration. This includes meeting with many of those who are standing with us today, including the Home Depot and CVS, and again, we appreciate their partnership. And we were proud to have recently convened the first meeting of the Organized Retail Crime Working Group created by the Attorney General Alliance, led by both myself and my fellow co-chair, Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul. This bipartisan coalition of state attorneys general and private businesses is dedicated to sharing information regarding organized retail crime, including best practices, law enforcement strategy, legislative initiatives, current trends, and statistical data. Whether working with the private or public sectors, federal, state, and local law enforcement, or collaborating with attorneys general and others around the country, our work is just beginning, and we are dedicated to seeing this initiative through. So once again, I want to thank all of those in the General Assembly and our business community who continue to work with us to identify common sense solutions to this growing problem. We encourage Georgia consumers who purchase items online to pay close attention. If a deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. So continue to use sound judgment. And we will continue to do everything in our power to protect Georgia's workers, consumers, and businesses by rooting out organized retail crime wherever it crops up. And it's now my honor to introduce Representative Houston Gaines.
Thank you, Attorney General Chris Carr, and thank you for your leadership on this issue. I'm proud to be carrying this legislation in the House, and I appreciate Senator Albers quickly getting this bipartisan measure through the Senate. Last year, the General Assembly passed significant legislation to crack down on organized retail crime. Senate Bill 332, the Informed Consumers Act, will address this issue with our online marketplaces. Unfortunately, online marketplaces, sites we visit every day like eBay, Facebook, and Amazon, are burdened with counterfeit and stolen products. Organized criminals use these online sites to resell stolen products and then use that money to fund illegal activities. This legislation will help us stop these criminals in their footsteps. With Senate Bill 332, we will crack down on those who seek to exploit online marketplaces to fund gang activity, drugs, and human trafficking. Every year, billions of dollars are stolen from retailers. Unfortunately, we see much of that is being resold, and oftentimes by these organized criminal groups. Georgia has made significant progress in our fight against organized retail crime. As we fight back, though, these criminals are adapting these strategies, and we must keep up. They're using online marketplaces, and we must shift our strategy to meet them and stop them in their tracks. I'm confident that once signed into law, Senate Bill 332 will provide an important tool for us to take on organized criminals and keep Georgians safe. I'm now honored to introduce Mike Combs, Director of Asset Protection with the Home Depot.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Combs. I'm the Director of Organized Retail Crime Investigations at the Home Depot. I want to thank Senator Albers and Representative Gaines for shedding light on this important issue and the passion they've brought to the discussion. I also want to thank Attorney General Chris Carr for his leadership in addressing crime in the state and specifically organized retail crime. In my role at Home Depot, I've seen firsthand how organized retail crime is growing here in the state of Georgia. Professional thieves are targeting retailers and running businesses by trafficking in those stolen goods. As you've heard from everyone else so far, that stolen merchandise is often resold anonymously on e-commerce platforms and social media apps. It's not just big box retailers like Home Depot, it's also small businesses that are affected. My team of organized retail crime investigators have expanded across the company as the scope of the problem has expanded. Our cases are getting larger in dollar amounts, and the quantity of cases that we're making are getting larger as well. It's actually happening right here in Georgia. Just in December, I'll give you an example of one case we made with a team of investigators and law enforcement officials. Our investigators worked to catch a group of thieves that stole large rental equipment from several stores. In the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, this rental equipment was stolen and resold within a few hours on online marketplaces. It's a perfect example of how brazen and how aggressive this problem is, but also how the criminals will stop at nothing and they will sell virtually anything on the marketplaces. Senate Bill 332 could be an important piece in addressing organized retail crime by closing some of these loopholes that allow criminals to sell anonymously and with very, very little oversight. We're hopeful that this bipartisan effort will stop the theft and resale of stolen product on these online marketplaces, and it also keep Georgia consumers safe. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Ben Dugan, the Director of Organized Retail Crime for CVS Health.
Thanks, Mike. Good afternoon. My name is Ben Dugan. I am the Director of Organized Retail Crime for CVS Health. I'm also the President of the National Coalition of Law Enforcement and Retail. I'd first like to take a second to thank Senator Albers, Attorney General Carr, and Representative Gaines for their leadership on this important issue. Making it harder for criminals to list product online is the most meaningful step that we can take to curtail retail theft and the real harm that it's causing not only retailers but the citizens of Georgia. Very recently we closed one of the largest organized retail crime cases on record, not far from where we're standing, right here in Atlanta. And this criminal organization stole millions of dollars by committing violent retail thefts across the state of Georgia. They moved their product through hidden warehouses, illicit small businesses, private residences, and ultimately listed the product online. And they purposely used different names, different screen names, different addresses, and different means of payment to avoid detection. And that's exactly what this legislation is set up to detect. And had we had this legislation a few years ago, it probably would have ended some of the violent crime that we experienced. So we support this bill because it protects Georgia consumers, it aids law enforcement, and it prevents crime. And that's all I have. So thanks very much. I'd like to turn it back over to Senator Albers. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you everyone for being here today. To emphasize the importance of Senate Bill 202, the Informed Consumer Act, it was the second bill that was passed out of the Senate this year in a bipartisan, unanimous vote. And we'll be working closely with our colleagues in the House now to get it to Governor Kemp's desk so we can protect our businesses and consumers. At this time, we're happy to take any questions you might have. Certainly. The question that was asked is, how does this close the loophole in people who might be selling stolen goods through online marketplaces? If you remember, several years ago, we had a big issue with metal theft in the state of Georgia. The problem was anyone would show up to a scrapyard and pawn off the materials that they had stolen. By simply capturing basic information, a government ID, a bank account, an address, assuring that's a real person, so if there were bad actors or criminals involved, we could go after them. We dramatically reduced metal theft. We did the same thing with pawn shops years before that to make sure that the criminals were not going unnoticed and anonymous through this process. The internet has brought us many good things, but it's also amplified the ability for criminals to sell their ill-gotten goods. And this gives us those same type of protections by capturing that information ahead of time to make sure we have people stay in their lane. And I'll give you an example. If on Christmas time I got a new drill from my wife, well, that would be great. And if I didn't like that drill or I had one, I might sell it on Facebook Marketplace. But if I sold 83 brand new ones in the box, that should be setting off the antenna and some bells for all of us. And this is simply putting normal business practices into place to ensure we protect both businesses and consumers. Other questions? So the question was, have we gotten any cooperation? We've had meetings with several of the folks that represent the different online marketplaces group, and I want to thank them for their partnership. I am proud of the fact that Etsy, Amazon, eBay, and others had signed on to the federal legislation, and we modeled this legislation to be 98% of the same. Now, obviously, there's some difference between a federal law and a state law, just because of different areas of government. While I appreciate them always wanting to support their concerns, we modeled this bill intentionally to follow what they had already endorsed. There certainly are penalties involved, and part of that, and working very closely with Attorney General Carr's office again, who was a big part of this legislation, is so he and his office can go after these folks both criminally and civilly should they continue to perpetuate the challenges we're seeing with organized retail crime.
I have a question for Attorney General Carr. This bill empowers you to be able to prosecute some of these crimes. Why is that important for you to have that oversight versus maybe local district attorneys or others?
Well, I'm always in favor of adding to, so I don't want to take anything from the criminal perspective. And that's really where our gang bill, also, from a civil perspective, our office has the Consumer Protection Division, which deals with false claims and that sort of thing. So we're set up to be able to deal with the civil side. And I think it's important when you're looking at issues like this that you come at it both from the criminal and the civil side of things too. So again, our priority is going to be on the gang prosecutions bill, which is separate from this particular bill. And I think the reason that that's important is because, again, gangs are operating across county lines. And I think it's critically important that we have an area where we can work together with DAs. But if there are 3 or 4 or 5 different jurisdictions, then we can kind of be the one-stop, centralized area for that prosecution too. And somebody had asked about working with the online platforms and the real retailers as well. We're actually having very good conversations about how we can all come together and figure out ways that we can prosecute now. And again, nobody's interested, from my perspective, in allowing counterfeit, stolen goods to be online. How you get there, maybe there's some differences of opinion, but I'm focused on the 80% of the ways that we can all come together, whether you're brick and mortar or online, to really solve the problem. And it's been a very constructive conversation that we've had both with the brick and mortar as well as the online folks.
Any other questions? Well, let me end by thanking again our Attorney General, Chris Carr, Representative Gaines, Mike Combs with the Home Depot, Ben Dugan with the Organized Retail Crime Unit of CVS Health, and my fellow legislators who will be working on this together. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we want to have a great bill on Governor Brian Kemp's desk, who's made it a priority to go after these bad actors and keep a safe and secure Georgia. Thank you for coming today. God bless you.